Wide receiver extensions are running wild. Who's up next now that Justin Jefferson has his record-setting deal? Thoughts on CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, JaMarr Chase, and more right now on Locked On NFL.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to a Wednesday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. He is Chris Carter. I'm James Rapien. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. A quick reminder to subscribe on YouTube, follow wherever you get your podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And Chris, wide receivers, well, they've been getting paid, whether it's A.J. Brown, whether it's Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jalen Waddle last week. But Justin Jefferson's deal on Monday kind of sets a tone for a few guys in the league, CeeDee Lamb being chief among them. What do you think about the Cowboys now faced with paying CeeDee Lamb? We could throw the Bengals and JaMarr Chase in there. This wide receiver market is exploding.
It's a big reason why, James, I think a lot of these teams, when you have a big name wide receiver like that, a wide receiver that you want to make your number one and pay that, wide receivers are still worth keeping your number one. But the structure that seems to be what a lot of teams are going for, you get a number one, you're a really talented guy on a rookie contract, and then you get like a lot of like minor veterans that you're not paying a whole lot of money for to balance everything out, because you can't overinvest in the wide receiver room while you're trying to complete your team, especially if you have a franchise quarterback that's throwing to that number one wide receiver. So this is where it gets tricky, is that you kind of want to get out in front of things here. Like imagine like, if CeeDee Lamb was able to get his deal in before Justin Jefferson, what would that do for his contract? What would that do for Justin Jefferson? Would that have driven up Justin Jefferson's price even more based off of what CeeDee Lamb got? Will it drive up CeeDee Lamb's price more because of what Justin Jefferson got? It's been the natural thing where the NFL salary cap bubble continues to just grow and grow and grow with who makes the most money and who is the highest player in all these different positions. And Justin Jefferson, I think everyone can kind of agree, like, hey, like that's the guy right now. That's the guy who's going to get paid like that. But like you said, now there's other guys coming behind him who you're going to have to ask, like, who deserves that next big contract. And I think there's several guys here. And then the thing about the wide receiver world is there's always, it feels like there's always like, new contenders in the top dog conversation, guys that put themselves in there. I mean, look, Puka Nacua is a rookie who everyone was thinking that, he'll just be a nice supplementary guy. Then he had 1,486 yards last year. And so he's on a deal for a few years. But like, what does Puka Nacua cost in a couple of years when his rookie deal runs out? What'll Brandon Ayuk get, either from the Niners or on the trade market? There's so many things to consider here. And I do think that as we see this bubble, I wonder how high up does the wide receiver market get in spending before it has to curve back down, because people can't spend this much on just one player.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And there are really three guys that I think threaten the Justin Jefferson deal here. And it's the three guys I mentioned at the top. And let's start with CeeDee Lamb, because whether it's CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, or JaMarr Chase, they're all in unique situations. The Cowboys got it wrong with CeeDee Lamb. I truly believe that, because if I'm CD, now I'm not taking less. I want the Justin Jefferson contract and like a penny more. But you could have got him for less a week ago.
Yep.
And you prioritize him. You find a way to get it done. They're in the same draft class. All of those things. CD has no reason to necessarily wait on Justin Jefferson if you're offering him market money. On the flip side, now that deal is done, it's like, okay, well, now you kind of have the benchmark and you're kind of forced to pay CD that money, even if he hasn't been as productive as Justin Jefferson, because I do think he's valuable enough to do that. And that's the other element here, is wide receivers are more valuable now than they've ever been, especially these top guys. CeeDee Lamb is that. He's clearly the top guy in Dallas. They don't even have a 1A or a 2A really, unless you want to count Brandon Cooks, but he's getting up there in age. Like, I think that what CeeDee Lamb has done now is put himself in position And I guess that maybe this is why he did wait. But if I was Dallas, I would have pressed hyperdrive on this after his season that he had last year to try to get a deal done. And instead now you're going to probably have to make CeeDee Lamb the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, which I don't think that's a bad investment in the player, but you probably could have got him for less.
And it could blow up the Cowboys. Like the Cowboys are already paying. Like they're keeping CD or Dak. I don't think they're keeping both with the way they're set up contractually. Maybe they find a way to keep both. But then if you do, then you're missing out on other guys. There's still other guys that they need to pay if they want to be a complete team here. And I think that's part of the question here is when you pay one of these big name wide receivers, it's great to keep them long term. But either A, you need to have the quarterback that's getting them the football right now, or B, you need to have a team around this wide receiver and the quarterback that's ready to get you a Super Bowl championship in the next few years. And the Cowboys, they've been a team that people have been thinking, oh, any day now they'll get there, they'll get back in the conversation, and they just haven't been that. And if they're going to pay CeeDee Lamb that money, they have to figure out how is the team going to get there with him being paid at that rate, because I think a lot of teams they look at the team, the players that they sign. When the Eagles, when they got AJ Brown, they were able to strike quickly with that. The Lions, they're in a position where with Amon-Ra St. Brown, they were just in the NFC Championship game. It's like, hey, we need to keep this guy around if we want to keep this nucleus together. The Dolphins, they're in a strike now mode as well with Tyreek Hill. So why not pay Jalen Waddle long term? He can be your guy eventually. Tyreek Hill, the question of how will he stick around, be a factor there while they're also paying Tua. It's one of the things that I think is very interesting about the NFL is how do you pay these top flight these players, because the more cap space that these contracts start to take up when you work into those top five group there, or even like top 8, really, when you look at how much some of these guys are getting paid, it's going to make roster construction very difficult to balance your roster with all the other things that you have to do, because these other positions are also going up. Look what Chris Jones is doing to the inside defensive lineman market.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's expanding in a bunch of different ways. A lot of these positions are blowing up from a money standpoint. Quarterback, wide receiver, chief among them. I have a question about the Cowboys that I want to run past you. It has to do with CeeDee Lamb. It has to do with Dak Prescott and the future of Jerry's Dallas Cowboys. We will get to that question coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the app you need to get in your life right now, whether it's NBA Finals tickets, whether it's tickets to that next great live event, including the entire 2024 NFL season. Game Time is going to have the tickets and the prices you're looking for. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip off. So if you're looking for NBA Finals tickets and you're in Dallas, you're looking for tickets for Thursday's NBA Finals opener in Boston, Game Time is the place you need to go with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest ticket price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets to all your favorite events, including the NBA. You can find and buy MLB tickets for every kind of event in your area. So don't delay. Go to Game Time or download the Game Time app right now in the App Store or Google Play. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. That's $20 off your first purchase. All you have to do is use code LOCKEDONNFL in the Game Time app. Terms apply. Again, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
We're back here on the Locked On NFL podcast, the Wednesday edition with Chris Carter here and also James Rapine. James, you were about to get to something on the Cowboys here. What were you about to hit at?
If you could only pick one
to
pay, and let's say it's a 4-year extension for Dak Prescott and $220 million, because that's probably what he'll command. 4-year, $220 for Dak. Or we'll say 4-year, $140 for CeeDee Lamb, just that Justin Jefferson deal. Which one are you picking, and why are you picking it?
Oh, you're killing me here, James, because the classic NFL rule is you got to have the franchise quarterback, right? But is Dak that kind of a quarterback that's going to get you to the Super Bowl, especially if you don't keep a CeeDee Lamb? To me, I feel like you have to keep a CeeDee Lamb because CeeDee Lamb is in the conversation with the best wide receivers in football. Dak Prescott's not in that conversation at quarterbacks. He's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. And that would be the thing, is that I would try to work it out with Dak and be like, hey, man, you need to work with us, man. Like, if you want to be in this system, if you want to work with this top flight wide receiver, you got to come to the table with us. We got to make a deal. You know, you've made your money. Let's try to build around you. You want a ring? You know, let's try to build around you. But we can't pay you this ridiculous amount of money that quarterbacks can be. You can make more on the free market if you will, but if you want to stay here, stay with the Cowboys, stay with CeeDee Lamb, like that would be the pitch that I'd be going through if I'm the Cowboys right now, because I think that they're in a position where you look at what you've done so far with Dak Prescott. It's not gonna. I don't think you can say that, like, hey, like, he by himself is ever going to drive the Cowboys to the Super Bowl. I think he can be part of the puzzle. I think he can be a lead. He can be a leader in that. And again, I know how important the quarterback position is in the NFL and everything. But when I look at what they need to do, they need to keep CeeDee Lamb, because he's one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver in the NFL. And they need to find a way to either work around that with Dak, or find their new path with a new quarterback and see what they can get for Dak on the trade market. That's the other part here, is if you put Dak on the trade market, you could potentially get a return for some of these teams that need a franchise quarterback and feel like they're on the cusp of being a contender without one.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting element here is let's just say the team you cover, the Pittsburgh Steelers, things don't work out with Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields. Would they be in on Dak next offseason if they could be? Like, I think he would have suitors. But to your point, is Dak the guy you're investing in that you're paying that kind of money to? Right. I'll be honest. I didn't love the Jared Goff deal. I think they have a ready-to-win team. So I get it and I understand it, and maybe it pays off. But I don't love that. And so the Cowboys, where their roster is, it's tough. And so I agree with you. I think it is CeeDee Lamb. I think you pay CeeDee Lamb because if Shedeur Sanders is throwing to him next year, well, that's better than that's better than the alternative where you're paying Dak big money and you don't have the targets. But I will say that there are wide receivers that come out, a ton of wide receivers, right? And they say that every year. It's hard to get those guys. It's really hard to get those guys. You have to be drafting early. They're going to go quick. And so I think getting CeeDee Lamb and then adding a second or third option for a young quarterback, I think that would be the way to go. I would pay Lamb as well.
It makes the most sense. And again, look, it is tough to find franchise quarterback play. Again, I am not underestimating that. As a person who covers the Steelers, they're going through it right now. But you look at what Dak has done so far for the Cowboys and how, this has been several years now, since 2016. He's been with this team. He has, and he's been good. He's not a bad player, but he's also not the quarterback that's going to be the driving force that gets you there. I think CeeDee Lamb is more of a driving force at the wide receiver position. So I agree with you. Like, you find a way to do that. Now, here's another thought here, because I know there's somebody probably thinking out there in the reverse. What would CeeDee Lamb command on a trade market? Like, how big of a splash? Like, part of what built the 90s Cowboys was Herschel Walker. It was the Herschel Walker trade where they traded him to the Vikings. They got like basically half a team in response. Could you get a king's ransom for CeeDee Lamb? And would that be a move that you would consider if you were the Cowboys, James?
25 years old. He's someone that, was just outstanding last year. 1,749 yards, 12 touchdowns, 135 receptions. Absolutely, I would be in. Over the past couple of years, he has 242 receptions. He's gone over 1,300 yards in each of the past 2 years, has 21 touchdown receptions over the past 2 years, had 2 rushing touchdowns last year, by the way. He's a stud. And so he's the number one on the majority of teams out there. Like Seattle, they have some good receivers, right? They don't have CeeDee Lamb. Brandon Ayuk in San Francisco. Is he their number one? Is it Deebo Samuel? It doesn't matter. Neither of those guys are CeeDee Lamb. And so I think a lot of teams could be interested. And what I would do is that if I'm a team with a rookie quarterback or a quarterback on a rookie deal, I'd be pushing as many chips in as I could to try to get a guy like CeeDee Lamb. And who knows? what would the market be? I think there'd be a ton of teams interested. And if you're Dallas, you have to be very, very leery of going that route. But if that's how you want to build your team and you believe in Dak and you want to go with the expensive quarterback and then younger receivers and try to build around him, Lamb would bring back pieces and there would be a very real market for him. So could I see it? I could. By the way, Lamb for Tyreek Hill. Who says no if it's offered today?
I mean,
who says no?
If I'm a Cowboys, I'd say no. No, I'm not getting listen, Tyreek is amazing and all that, but the whole point of CeeDee Lamb, like you said, he's 25 years old. You get to keep that man for about 6 more years, and he's still in his prime. And that's again why, like, I feel like if you sign him, if you're trading him away, you're not trading him for an older wide receiver. You're trading him for draft picks, an insane amount of draft picks. If I'm the Cowboys, I want at least 3 firsts and some change for CeeDee Lamb. I'd be trying to hustle out of it. And I'm not sure who would come to the table for that. But sometimes I think that there's a play that's like a CD, that's like a JaMarr Chase, a Justin Jefferson. People might be like, you know what? We got a chance to get like the best dude that a guy that we think is the best receiver in the NFL. Let's go get him right now and stop wasting time. I think that's what the move that the Cowboys would go for. But a straight up trade for another player, unless that's their packaging and you get another guy that's the best of the best of their position and young. I don't think that can happen. Ooh, who you got?
TJ Watt for CeeDee Lamb. Who says no?
Now you just mess with me. Now you just try to start stuff.
Who says no?
I think the Cowboys too. Because here's the thing. Again, like TJ Watt's 30. So like him and Michael Parsons immediately become the best edge rushing duo in the NFL. Like that is unstoppable right there. And like right now, TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, that's the best edge rushing duo in the NFL. But you throw him over there with Michael Parsons, that's like Michael Jordan and LeBron James on the same team. Like, wait, what are we doing there? But I also think that, again, when you're thinking longevity, like you should certainly add to the defensive side of things. But like if I'm the Steelers, all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, all right, we gave up TJ Watt, but now we got this 25-year-old dude that's now our number one receiver. I think the Steelers are like, would be in a position where it's like, look, we need to find our franchise quarterback before we make an investment like that. But if you get a young guy who could be a number one, I think the Steelers would certainly at least consider something like that, even though TJ Watt is very much kind of like the face of the team right now with the way that he's playing. He's leading the NFL in sacks every season or every other season. I think he's done it 3 of the last 4 years. But yeah, if I'm the Cowboys, I would hesitate on that simply because you only have TJ Watt in his prime for probably another 2, maybe 3 years. But CeeDee Lamb, you could have him in his prime for another 6 or 7. And to me, that's worth a lot.
It is worth a lot. For some reason, and I know they drafted a receiver early. They have Michael Pittman Jr., but I thought of the Colts when we were thinking about that. I was like, oh, the Colts just being a team that could be lingering if something were to happen. Obviously, Dallas could pay CeeDee Lamb, and this could be all a moot point, but it is interesting. I mentioned Tyreek Hill. Let's get into Tyreek Hill, JaMarr Chase a little bit, but certainly Tyreek Hill because he wants an extension, and I think his situation is much different than a CeeDee Lamb, than a JaMarr Chase. 24 and 25-year-old star wide receivers that we know are going to get paid. Will Tyreek Hill get another bite of the apple? We will discuss his situation with the Dolphins coming up next.
But first, when we run to this show is also sponsored by BetterHelp Therapy Online. What's the first thing you do if you had an extra hour in your day? Maybe you go for a run, read a book, or be there for a friend. But what about being there for yourself? That's where therapy can help, and it helps you find what matters most to you so you can do more of that. I've benefited from the help of a good therapist in my life who's helped me sort the most important things out as I try to balance every single day. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. BetterHelp knows life can be busy and stressful, so it's designed to be suitable for your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and then you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge to find the right fit. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
Let's keep things rolling here on a Wednesday edition of Locked On NFL. And Tyreek Hill wants a new contract. He signed a 4-year, $120 million extension with the Dolphins a few years ago, but his agent Drew Rosenhaus saying that he wants a new deal. I get it. I understand it. And yet I look at this and he has 2 years after this year. He's only in year 2 of that extension, Chris. As productive as any receiver there is in the league. He's also 30 years old. He's also on the small end of receivers. And it felt like almost every game last year he was limping at some point and was dealing with something. I know he was super productive, but it just felt like he was always playing through some kind of ankle or foot or leg issue. How would you approach this? Because I think it's a really tough situation. They extended Jalen Waddle. Tyreek Hill's under contract, and yet at the same time, he wants a revamped deal.
If I'm the Dolphins, I find every way to hold on to that, because here's the thing. Tyreek Hill's an amazing receiver, but a big part of what makes him an amazing receiver, he's the fastest man in football. He takes off and you can't catch him. He's 30 this year. I'd say he keeps that. He could even keep it at 31. He might keep it at 32. But eventually that speed is going to slow down. And then you're going to have to ask, is he still one of the best receivers in the NFL by the time he's 33? And that's what you're talking about if you're signing him to a big extension. Right now, his contract runs through 2026, where he'd be 32 years old that season. He'd be a $56.3 million cap hit according to this contract right now. And if I'm the Dolphins, maybe I'd add like a year or two just to spread out the cap hit a little bit more. But you have to ask yourself, are you still investing in him? Because then you just signed Jalen Waddle. If I'm the Dolphins, I might honestly be looking to try to hit big in the trade market with Tyreek Hill again, looking for that team that needs the help. Like, I know you mentioned, Dak for Tyreek in that situation. I don't think the Dolphins could afford to pay both CD and Jalen Waddle long term, but Tyreek Hill, I think if you traded him somewhere, the Dolphins, I don't think the Cowboys, but you traded someone that needs a number 1 wide receiver right now, and you could get a first round pick or 2, that could be something that intrigues me. But signing him to another extension, there would need to be some parameters that you buffed out, because I think that there'd be a lot of work that you need to do contractually to make that work long term, especially when you got Waddle, especially when you got Tua that's being paid. You're paying other guys. You're paying Teron Armstead. I look at that and I'd be worried about my overall roster construction, because the Dolphins are another team. They need to win soon. I think with the guys that they have, and they could win now with Tyreek and Jalen paying them. But long term, I think that would break up their chance to bolster their roster across the board.
Yeah, I think this would be my last year with Tyreek Hill if I'm the Dolphins. And I would have considered trading him 2 months ago. That's when I would have really been like, man, we can get multiple ones. Like, you might have been able to get multiple ones for Tyreek Hill. And rightfully so. He's coming off of 2 back-to-back 1,700-yard seasons, back-to-back 119 catch seasons, averaging 14 plus yards a target or reception rather, 20 touchdowns over the past 2 years. Like, he's been awesome. And so he's worth it. But if you're the Dolphins, you have Waddle. If you could cash in there in a great wide receiver draft, I haven't looked ahead to next year's to see how deep it is. But if you could cash in, it would be wise to. And so we'll see. I think if Tyreek is good again this year, then next year will be the year where they try to move him. I would try to get ahead of it, and you try to take advantage of some of these teams that are desperate for weapons. And maybe it's a New England Patriots, even though they're in your division. I wouldn't shy away from that. If that's the case, maybe you try to target
get the proper payment for him.
Yeah. Maybe you try to target, the Steelers, or you try to target a team that is looking, heck, and they have a rookie quarterback. After this year, what if you call the Vikings and you said, we want Jordan Addison and a 1 for Tyreek Hill?
Whoa.
And then if you're the Vikings, you're like, wait, Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill? Out of your conference if you're the Dolphins. I'm just saying. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. You see, you like my GM ideas. They're out there.
Your GM ideas are insane. They would be. I mean, but hey, this is part of the things that guys do consider, right? These are the things that blow up the league. You know, it's not crazy to think about the trades that could happen because there are big things that happen. I think a team that makes a lot of sense. What about the Green Bay Packers with Jordan Love? If they really believe in Jordan Love and you get him a player like Tyreek Hill, that could be something there. You know, you talked about trading within the division. What about the Jets? You're all in on Aaron Rodgers right now. Give him a Tyreek Hill along with Garrett Wilson, and now you're talking like, look, we are super all in. Now, again, if you're the Dolphins, why would you do that to yourself? But if I'm the Jets, maybe I could pony up and give up some serious compensation there. But yeah,
I would have offered it.
Certainly,
that's a good one. I would have offered it. I would have gotten the 10th pick and next year's one from the Jets. And I think they probably would have done it because the moment Aaron Rodgers finds out he can have Tyreek Hill,
gimme. Yeah.
And then if you're the Dolphins, you could have moved up a couple spots.
You
get Rome Odunze. And then it's just like, oh, okay, well, got Rome. Or if you wanted to move up, you could have had Neighbors.
Yeah.
You know, what about the Cardinals?
I was looking at teams in the NFC, and the Cardinals would make a lot of sense if they really believe in Kyler, and I think they do. And they want to build and they want to try to get there. I think Tyreek could be that. I feel like it wouldn't work out because I think that they're still a lot further from being a major contender than just a number one. I think that would get them. Tyreek would help them get to the playoffs, but I don't think he would make them a Super Bowl contender. I think that they would be a team that makes the wild card, gets bounced. And that's where I struggle to find who is the team that could afford to trade for him and would be immediately made to be that kind of squad. And that's why I looked at the Packers, because I think it does make sense with the weapons that they have and with Jordan Love. You know, you look around like another team. I'd be considering. What about the Houston Texans after C.J. Stroud's big year and what he did with his receivers? That like put Tyreek Hill with C.J. Stroud. What does he do there? And if I'm the Texans and I want to strike while the iron is hot because C.J. Stroud's, we got 4 more years of this dude on rookie deal money with that 5th-year extension that'll be there. So let's strike now while we can and make these crazy investments. I think finding a young quarterback who has his team competing would be the key here for the Dolphins, because I think those are the teams that would be the most hungry to spend big on a Tyreek Hill right now.
The Los Angeles Rams. You thought I was going to say Chargers. The Rams.
Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Puka Nacua.
Oh my God.
That'd be insane.
Sean McVay say, hey, we're going 5 wide every time. They certainly going 3 wide.
You know we're throwing and you can't do anything about it.
I mean, you know, I'm just saying. Regardless, it's going to be a lot of fun to see how it plays out. Tyreek Hill will probably be in Miami this season. We'll see if he gets a new deal. We'll see if JaMarr Chase or CeeDee Lamb get contract extensions in the near future. One thing is certain, Chris, we will be covering it right here on Locked On NFL. So make sure you subscribe on YouTube, follow wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, for Chris Carter, I'm James Rapien. Thank you so much for listening to Locked On NFL.